And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Punk Thomson. 100% agree. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
He looks so educated with his glasses and his beanie on at the same time. My God, welcome to the Weighing In podcast. We are here to talk about the fights that happened, and we have got an incredibly special guest for you later on in the show. You're going to love him. My man, what's happening? How you doing? How was Nashville and then going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for the Bama versus LSU football game?
It was awesome, man. I mean, like, I've never been to an SEC game, and it makes you kind of put things into perspective, like being there live. I mean, I've got live video. I've got the Walker locker room, like with Saban walking his players out of the locker room. It's pretty damn impressive. It's pretty impressive. They do a lighting ceremony. I guess apparently Bama was the first college to do it, first football stadium to do it, where they hold up their phones and they yell "Alla" on one side, and everyone puts their phone up on this side, and on the right side everyone keeps their phone down, and they go to the other side, they go "Bama," and then everyone puts put their light up on their phone. This one goes down. They go back and forth. It's pretty cool, man. And then the songs that they sing, adding in like how they basically want to beat LSU and Tennessee too. It's pretty fucking cool. It's pretty cool. So, but I did notice it's a little bit harder, John, to get through long nights, whether you're out with your friends or whatever, when you're not drinking. So, like, we chartered a bus. We chartered a bus from Nashville, came on down to the game. Got back as soon as the game was over. Game ended late. It was like probably around 10 something. So we get on the bus and we drive back. Well, it's about a 3.5-4 hour drive.
Yeah, you need to have whiskey at that point.
Yeah, I slept the whole way. I just knocked right out. But the night before, we went out in downtown Nashville, and after we had dinner, it was only like 10 o'clock. And I'm looking around, and I see my cousin, I see some of our friends, and we're all together in a group of about 15 of us. And I just looked at one of my buddies that was in from California. He was there visiting. And I looked at him. He looked at me. I go, "I'm about to Irish goodbye, you guys." And he's like, "Don't." He goes, "Don't fucking leave without me." And I fucking whoop, right out the back door. Like, it's one thing to do, like with you guys when we're on the road for Bellator. Like, I can Irish goodbye whenever I want. I normally don't because I don't normally drink unless I'm with you guys. And you're kind of the same way. Is we don't normally drink until we all get together. Like, it's like we do the first night we get there, we kind of all have drinks and have dinner. And then the night we don't really drink the next 2 nights. And then the fight night, we drink again that night and we all go our way. Yeah. We don't drink a lot. We don't drink, when we're not really around each other. So I can Irish goodbye you guys and it's like no big deal. And, but like when you're with a group of friends you haven't seen in a long time, and my cousin too, he's from, he lives in Nashville now. He's from California. It's just that moment of, okay, I'm leaving him. Am I going to leave? I kind of feel like, I'm here. I'm staying at his house. Literally, I just jumped in the cab. But I will tell you this, John. I'm going to tell it. This is why people fucking don't use taxi cabs anymore. I kid you not. It was literally a 10-minute drive from downtown to my cousin's house. 10-minute drive. Jumped in a cab because it was convenient. The buddy I was with, "Hey, let's get an Uber." He's like, "There's cabs right here. Just jump in the cab. It's accessible. Let's just jump in. We'll get home in 10 minutes. No problem." Instead of waiting for an Uber and trying to find him in downtown Nashville's packed. It's Nash Vegas now, I guess apparently it's called. Yeah, it's fucking packed. Anyway, so we jump in the fucking taxi cab. We get to the house, and my buddy goes, he's like, "I got it. Don't worry about it." He's like, "Whatever. No big deal." Guy gives him the fucking receipt. $100. $100. I said, I didn't see it until after we got it. He's like, "Dude, it was $100 for the taxi." I was like, "Why the fuck did you pay it?" I would have told you to fuck off. The guy didn't run the meter. I would have just told you to fuck off. You can't charge me if there's no meter running. It's against the law. So,
he didn't run the meter?
No, he didn't run the meter.
I thought,
because I haven't been in a taxi cab in forever, probably at least 12, 13 years. I thought maybe that they just started doing it separately now on how they do it through their phones. I thought maybe it was $100. It was less than, it was like only probably like 8 minutes or 8 miles away. Not even, maybe not even that far. 6 to 7 miles away. They were home in 10 minutes. And it was $100. I was like, I would have
$10 a month.
I would have fucking told him to fuck off. Seriously, I can see why you guys are going out of business. It's a dinosaur, man. The taxi cab industry is a fucking dinosaur business.
Yeah, it is.
It's got to go. Disgusting. But anyways, the game itself was awesome. The crowds were awesome. The people in Alabama were fucking awesome. It was great. It was all I had a blast. And if you know, I'd never been to an SEC game, and I can't wait to go back. It's gonna be fun.
SEC football.
Oh,
trust me.
awesome.
They are intense.
Awesome.
They are intense.
It's gonna be fun.
But a lot is happening. A lot is happening in the fight world. We did just have a show from Brazil with the UFC, and we had a very long, very long main event. It's so funny because I'm watching this fight, Josh, and it's reminding me of something. And I'll bring it up when we start really talking about this fight. But it's hysterical how it was like, oh yeah, well that's basically this. I did that fight one time, but it's crazy. Let's talk about the UFC, and we had Jailton Almeida taking on Derek the Black Beast Lewis in the main event in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Sao Paulo is a cool place. Huge city. Huge city. I don't know if you've ever been there. Have you been there?
No, I've never been.
Yeah, it's a massive city. One of the biggest cities in the world.
Yeah, no, don't doubt it.
And the fans there definitely root for their own, and I love that about them. They're homers, so you would fit in perfectly there.
Yes.
It's the whole way. But let's talk about Mr. Almeida versus Mr. Lewis. What did you think of that fight?
Scroll down a little bit more there, Dave. Let's talk about the co-main event. You guys, Nicholas Dalby versus
no.
John.
Come on. Yes.
Okay, so look, I saw some people in the comments going, "What do you mean that Almeida can't wrestle?" Look, he's from Brazil. Like, wrestling is not great there, and anybody that had I look at Derek Lewis he's developed decent takedown defense, but Almeida is the better athlete. Let's not.
No doubt.
We're not gonna beat around the bush. It's true. He's the better athlete. His wrestling is not great. I'm not going to have this argument with people on the couch at home. His wrestling's not good. But it was good enough to get Derek Lewis down. And once he got him down, Derek Lewis really had no answer to get back up. And so his ability to get the takedowns, what I did like that he did in his wrestling was that he kept Derek Lewis moving. And he did it off of transitions. Like, as Derek Lewis was trying to fight it, he'd move him a little bit and then re-attack on the double leg and lift and scoop, or just scoop, or lift a single and kind of get him off balance, because heavyweights don't have good balance. Because, John, I've seen you fell on top of me one time inside the cage, and I remember no balance. It's very common for heavyweights.
It was perfect balance.
Yes.
I fell right on top of you.
Yes, that's just called accurate falling. That's all it's called. And so with Almeida, he's the better athlete. He's the better jiu-jitsu guy. He was very good on the ground. Good even when he got put on bottom. He was able to come up on the deep half.
He had some beautiful sweeps. He did a very nice job.
Absolutely phenomenal. But in terms of what the fight, John, it was trash. It was trash. I thought.
Why do you think it was trash?
I thought Almeida did a great job of control. I thought Almeida did a great job of threatening positions, but never fully attacking the positions. There should have been more emphasis on doing damage. If you have mount on someone, give me the hard, aggressive elbows. Make the ref want to stop it. Make Derek Lewis move to the point where it's easier for me to catch him in transition. You are the better athlete. You were way better on the ground. It's night and day.
No.
Like, you can catch him in arm bars and transitions.
Josh, he stood up in mount.
Yeah.
And just stood over him.
This is what I really believe happened. He realized how strong Derek Lewis was. Like, he was able, Derek Lewis was able just to hold him away like this with his two hands on his chest and go.
But why not when it's coming to 10 seconds left, why not go after that arm? If you're worried about being on the bottom, go after the arm with, 15 seconds left. Why are you just allowing those arms to be extended that whole time? Because Derek's not a flexible guy. Mm-hmm. An arm bar is going to work really well. Yeah, he could possibly get out, but it's the end of the round.
Yeah. I can't tell you that. I don't have those answers, John. I wish I did.
This reminded me of a fight that happened in Strikeforce. Jake Shields versus Dan Henderson. Boom. See? Yeah. Tell me that this fight was not incredibly similar to what we saw with Almeida and
Jake
Lewis.
landed more strikes.
Henderson.
Maybe they weren't hard, but Jake landed more strikes. At least he was throwing something. I mean, Almeida was literally just on top. 1 strike, 1, 2 strike, and at least Jake was hitting. I don't know, man. I can't. I'm not trying to throw any shade. Everyone, you guys listen to this show enough. I love Jailton Almeida. I think he's the future. But buddy, you got to get better at ground and pound. The UFC is not going to allow this.
It's not even you have to get better at ground and pound. You have to get better at doing damage.
Yeah.
Okay, and we say it all the time. Ground and pound is an art unto itself. To know how to throw heavy shots while maintaining balance, doing damage, opening up the person's guard, understanding how to do it. But many times, and it was funny because Derek Lewis controlled his wrist to the point he was frustrated.
Yeah.
And he was so frustrated, he's looking at Mark Goddard like, hey, look at what he's doing. Mark Goddard's going, that's your wrist, fight. And it was just one of those fights where it kept on looking like something bad was going to happen to Almeida in this, because Jailton was just having this easy time with him, and it looked like, and we always talk about don't let a good fighter stay in the fight. Get rid of him.
Yeah.
Put him away if you can put him. And Derek just hung in there, and he kept just putting up with some discomfort at time, some little shots and everything. Nothing that was that damaging, because you looked at him at the end of the fight. He was a little bruised up, but not bad. Not bad for a guy that was mounted. And it was, hold on, when you talk about the mount, I mean, it's not like that Almeida, look, he just got mount. It was given to him. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Right to the takedown, right to mount.
But it wasn't like it was a setup to the mount. After a while, he just threw the leg over. It was like, no, okay, I know you're going to give it to me. And he did. Yeah. And I'm like, why are you just giving it to him?
There was no knee on belly, trying to slide the knee across, trying to get there technically.
No, dude, he didn't cut through nothing.
There was nothing.
Yeah. It was just a strange fight. The same as Jake Shields and Dan Henderson was really a strange fight. Yeah. Dan could not stop Jake from getting mount and just ended up underneath him, but wasn't hurt. It went 5 rounds just like this. And it's one of those you look and you go, yeah, I can't say anything. You look at Jailton fought, and he fought, he won every round, but it seems like he should have been able to get the finish.
Well, I see what's in his...
I can't blame him that he didn't.
I see what's in his future. His future is Curtis Blades. That's his future.
Oh, yeah.
The UFC...
Well, that was supposed to be this fight.
The UFC is going to go, hey, I need to see you do something on the feet. I'm not putting you any closer to a title shot until I see you actually can stand and actually throw some bombs and, get after it. Look, when...
Well, that's how he's lost. When you take a look, he's got, 2 losses,
yeah,
I believe
so.
And his first loss was, I think he got TKO'd, and the second loss was a decision. But, I mean, it's like he KO'd, so yeah.
Okay.
So now it's 16 seconds into the fight, but that's a long time ago. But, the guy's good. He really is, and he's athletic.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a great ground game. He's able to force that on everybody. But it is the question, if you go against someone that can stop your takedowns, what are you going to be able to do? And it's a good question in this, because Derek, kept trying to load up with the uppercut, and after a while it's like, Derek, you've shown him that how many times? He knows that's what you're looking for. That's the easiest thing for me to avoid if you keep on showing it that
Where's
way.
the flying knee, Derek? Yeah. Let me see that.
Exactly.
Let me see it. I mean, but if I'm the UFC, right, you're thinking to yourself, you couldn't finish Derek Lewis on the ground. You had him on the ground for 21 minutes of the fight.
And if there's one place that everyone wants to put Derek Lewis, it's on the ground.
And you couldn't finish him. That's the concern. I mean,
that is a concern.
Derek Lewis got finished by DC on the ground.
Yeah. DC's really not a submission fighter, but he did. I've done fights with him where he's gotten submissions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This guy is known for his submissions, and there was lack thereof in this fight. And look at it. Like I said, I'm high on this guy. I think he's going to end up being at least a number 1 contender or potentially the champion. Because you get up into those higher weight classes, he's got a little bit of wrestling. It's not great wrestling. It's a little bit of wrestling. But when you're fighting these guys in the heavyweight division, you don't need great wrestling. I mean, you're going to need it against guys like John Jones, Curtis Blades. Yeah. You're going to need it against those guys, or you're going to need a lot better stand-up than what you have. But all the other guys, you're not going to need a tiny bit of wrestling. Shot 1, maybe to shot 2, in terms of transition and chain wrestling. Once they hit the ground, they're all lost. All of them. You look at Tai Tuivasa, you look at Cyril Gahn, you look at Volkov, you look at all of those guys. They're all lost on the ground except for Curtis Blaydes and John Jones. Every single one of them. Stipe is not lost. He's not lost on there either. But I'm saying
Stipe is not lost.
No.
Either is Aspinall.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Aspinall. I mean, there are guys in there. I was just in my mind, I only had John and Curtis, and I started thinking, okay, I've got other guys. Yeah. But you can see them. Had he had a great performance tonight, they would have fast tracked him, probably skipped Curtis Blaydes, moved right into somebody else who kind of favored him a little bit more. But I think because of what they got, they're going to probably look to make him a Curtis Blaydes fight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think they're going to look towards putting him towards someone that's going to make him have to stand.
Yeah, I mean, all I was thinking, and I know it sounds really stupid, was of GSP. I was not impressed by your performance. If I'm them going this, I was not impressed. And I hope that there's got to be more. If you're Dana White, you're looking for more of an emphasis on either damage or the attack, submission. So I want to see you chasing that. A long time ago, I think it was for The Ultimate Fighter. He said, Dana came out and was like, we're looking for fucking killers, man. We want guys that are constantly looking for the finish, constantly looking for the knockout, submissions, whatever it is. We're looking for fucking stone cold killers. If you're not that guy, this ain't the promotion for you. And what I saw, I didn't see that guy last night. I've seen it before, but I didn't see that guy last night. That's where we're at. So hopefully, this was just a one-off, and we see him mentally gets better in terms of going for it against someone. But
well, if you were not impressed with his performance, then let's talk about the co-main event, because we had talked about this fight in length in our last show, talking about Gabriel Bonfim against Nicholas Dalby. And you got to admit, I was right on this one. I said, what's the way for Nicholas Dalby? Nicholas Dalby's got a gas tank. Nicholas Dalby is a tough son of a bitch. I've watched him fight too many times. He is a gamer, man. He will go for it. He will take shots to give shots. And until you have fought a guy like that, you just don't understand what it's like to punch somebody with everything you have and them to just snort and come forward, and you go, Jesus Christ. And it just starts to become this overwhelming current that you cannot swim up against, and that's what happened with Bonfim. Bonfim's going to learn from this. He's a good fighter. He's got a lot of talent. He is athletic. He's fast. He's got good power, but he was not ready for someone to be able to take that power and come back at him the way that Dalby did.
Yeah, you have to really, if you're a Bonfim, you have to go back to your camp and you say, look, you guys should have prepared me better for somebody who had this amount of pressure. When someone's as good as Bonfim, you shouldn't have lost to someone like this. You should have fought a more composed fight, cut angles, cut off, and basically every time he threw, stepped out the side and came out the back door. Should have J-turned, came out the side, circled out, came underneath the heavy shots, got his back off the fence. He had no answer for it. Once he got tired, once he could stop, once he lost his accuracy,
once he got tired, his back was riding that fence.
He was riding the fence, and then the other thing, for God's sake, grab the guy. Stop covering up on your head and then the other thing, putting your head down at his waist level.
He's kneeing you.
It just didn't make sense. I'm like, I know you're tired, but just grab him, lock him up, over-unders, whatever it is. One of the things, it all comes down to this. Tell me why it was that you worked your ass off doing sprints around, 800-yard sprints, 440s, all these. Why did you work your ass off? So I didn't end up like that.
In that fashion. Bingo. Because fatigue makes cowards out of all of us. And it's not that you're a coward. No. It's just that you can't perform. Yeah. You hit that point where your brain basically shuts down.
Everything's a fog. Everything's a fog. Yeah. I've gotten that. I've gotten that in training several times, and I used to get that when I first started training with guys like Bob Cook and Frank Shamrock. They would push you. They wouldn't even go hard in the beginning. They would just put pressure on you because they knew they were in better shape. I was a part-time fighter. They were in the gym every day, training with the fighters, training in the evening, teaching classes, doing jiu-jitsu, grappling hours and hours on end. Yep. So they knew. They're like, look, all I got to do is just get past the first 2 rounds with this guy, and it's a different story. Because I wasn't a full-time fighter. And it opened my eyes to the point of where You had to learn to push yourself in cardio nonstop. And when you hear the saying, right, you know, fatigue makes cowards, all of us, you don't realize how much time I spent instead of hitting mitts, instead of sparring, instead of grappling. I said, you know what? I'm feeling a little down today. I'm feeling like my body feels a little bit tired. I'm just basically going to go to do sprints on the pre-core, do sprints on the treadmill, because you knew that the most important thing was making sure your cardio was on point. Doing mitts and all those things. And the better shape you're in, the better your brain will process whatever it is your coaches are telling you to do. So my first thing as soon as camp started was to make sure that I didn't care about hitting mitts, even though I still hit them. But it was like, okay, look, it wasn't a great pad session today. No big deal. It wasn't a great sparring session today. Didn't care. It was all about getting my muscle endurance up, getting my heart rate up, getting my cardio on track, getting my recovery on track. After the first 2-3 weeks, completely different fighter. Completely just a switch just turned on. Yeah. When I came back from China, I was in China for about three months. Doing a low level C, actually probably a D level movie. And when I came back, I found out when I was there the last 2 weeks, I was fighting Nate Diaz, my first fight in the UFC. And so I came back, man. I couldn't spar for 2 weeks. I couldn't spar fucking more than 2 rounds. I was getting my ass kicked by 125 pounders. They were fucking me up. They were just peppering me. They were like, blah, blah. I was like a Pez dispenser out there, just my head snapping back, just getting tagged. But after the 2 weeks, my body started getting more in shape, started feeling better. You've got to push yourself in the cardio the most. And then everything else will get processed a lot better mentally. It makes sense, man. Makes sense.
It does.
This is something he's going to have to learn from because he's got all the talent in the world. But you got to learn how to step off line, get off line, come out the back door, push there back to the fence, let your hands go, and then circle back to the center or step back into the center and let the fight develop in front of you again. You've got to learn to do those things. He got himself bullied around after he got tired.
And Dalby's definitely on a roll. Look at Dalby. Once he had a 3-fight losing streak in the UFC. You know, I think all decisions, just unanimous and split. But he is on a roll now, and he is fighting well. You know, he was in the UFC. He left, and then came back. And now, man, I'll tell you what. You know, he has the one loss to Tim Means, but other than that, he has been going through people, and he's got some big wins. And I say it all the time. That fight that I watched him against Ross Houston, which was in Cage Warriors, and it was stopped due to blood because they were both bleeding and slipping, and but it told me everything I needed to know about the guy. Yeah, he's got no quit in him, and he will come after you. So. Just an incredible performance and a great win. I want to see who they're going to put him up. He's got to be ranked now. He's got to be somewhere. Yeah, he's got to be. He's that good.
Think so.
Keep in mind they won't update that till Tuesday anyway.
Yeah, they haven't updated it. Yeah, because let's be honest, and no disrespect, but you got people in there that he's better than.
Is it 170 or lightweight?
170.
It's 170. Right?
170.
Welterweight.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but Bonfim's not in there either.
No, Bonfim's not. But Dalby is now on how many fights has he won in a row there? Go back to that, Dave.
5.
I want to say something like that.
4 in a row.
Four in a row. Okay.
Yeah.
Before that, he was winning minus no contests.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whatever happened to Ross Houston?
Just stop fighting.
He had that one fight in Bellator where he lost, and then
he had the fight against MVP. I want to say it was, and that was it. He hasn't.
I haven't seen him since what 2020.
No.
Interesting.
Yep.
Fucking, he picked the worst time to fight with no crowds.
Yeah, he was a talented guy.
Yeah. Interesting.
He really was.
Anyways,
all right, so let's get back to it. Rodrigo Nascimento against Dontel Mays. Hey, I give it. I thought Dontel actually fought a good fight.
Yep.
I thought he got hit too much, but you know what? He stood in there. He tried all kinds of different things to make him work for him. He's not a guy that's functional. He doesn't have really good kicks or anything like that. He's more of a boxing centric guy, and if he can use his hands to put him on you, he does well. Nascimento is just a little bit more well-rounded as a complete fighter, and he got the decision. But I thought it was a good fight. I thought Dante Almeida, showed himself very well.
Yeah, I think what you see though is Nascimento. He looked great the first 2 rounds, and then both of them in that third round, you saw heavyweights. I mean, this is what you see from heavyweights.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, see,
a lot of weight to move around.
yeah, I mean, like, that's why I always say the lighter fighters are better, because we actually fight for the full
not
amount.
better.
No, it is better.
No, it's not
It
better.
is. If you can't get
Really?
through a full
Okay.
fight, they're better.
Okay, so then you fight him, and we'll see who's better.
Nope. Why you got to use an old guy? These guys are younger than me.
I'm not using an old
I
guy.
am
I'm
old,
just saying,
John. You said you.
put in
You said
whatever it is.
you. That means me.
Well,
that means me.
You as a lightweight fighter.
If
Go fight the heavyweight.
I'd
When you
fuck
beat
these
him, then I'll
guys
say
up,
you're a better
John.
fighter.
I would have fucked these
Shit,
guys up.
you can't even beat an
Bro.
old fucking grandpa like me.
You forget. I said when I was younger. You said why would I fight these guys now? These guys are fucking they're like 27, 28 years old in their prime.
Yeah, you couldn't even beat a 60-some-year-old bastard
John,
like me.
But I wasn't in my prime when I was with you, and you also just fell over on me. It was
fell on you.
unexpected.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bring out that tape.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It does.
Next fight.
Chael Borralho against Abus Magomedov. And you're talking about conditioning again, and
Yeah.
Abus is gonna have to figure out what it is, because he, for the most part, he looked good in the fight. He took some.
I thought so too.
I thought he put some really good shots on Cal and was doing a job, and he fell off of the goddamn turnip truck in that third round, and it just all fell apart for him. And
Yeah.
stuff. Now it went to a decision, but I look at Borralho's good.
Yeah.
And I thought he fought. And I've watched him multiple times where I go, not the smartest in what you did, but hey, super exciting. Really liked it. And this one, he was really smart. I thought he fought a very
Fight
smart,
IQ came
technically
through.
sound fight. Yeah.
Let me break it down for you. This is not for you, but for everyone listening. What he needed to do is he understood how good Magomedov was in the first round. He's seen that before. He saw it against Sean Strickland. And then after that, he's not the same fighter. What he did was he allowed Magomedov to fight a fight, let his output come, and he was very conservative. Borralho was. He was conservative. He made him fight, made him react. And in the second round, I thought the second round was close, but I still had Borralho taking the fight.
I had
Had him
Borralho
taking the
taking it.
round. But I had Magomedov winning the first round. So I had Magomedov winning the first round. I had Borralho win the second. And in the third, there was just no output from Magomedov.
No,
So
he was
when I looked at what Borralho did, is he fought a very, very smart fight. When we talk about fighter IQ, he understood what was at stake. The hype's around this guy.
I don't have to win every
Yeah,
round.
I don't need to win the first round. And look, he fought basically how I had to fight my whole career. I was never going to be better than the stronger, faster, harder hitter, better wrestler than any of these guys I ever fought. So in the first round, I had to fight either a very explosive first round to get you to go at a fast pace, or I had to just kind of nitpick at you until you extended yourself or until you started to get a little bit tired. Then I pushed the pace. He did that. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He didn't get into a dogfight and get caught in the first round and give this guy an opportunity. He drug it out a little bit in the first, and then the second and the third, he started taking over. Very smart fight. Understand. I think he's starting to understand there's a future for me in this.
He's maturing as a
Yes.
fighter. You can see it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Great job. It was a good overall. I thought Abus actually fought a good fight, but he's going to have to figure out what he needs to do to make it to where that third round is not his enemy.
Yeah. True. Next.
Elvis Brenner against Kraszczewski. Kraszczewski.
It's Krzyzewski. It's like Krzyzewski or Crew.
It's Kanan.
It's Krzyzewski, I think is what it is. Krzyzewski.
Well,
okay.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's funny because we're going to talk to someone here that's going to have some information on this, but Tyson Fury fought Francis Ngannou, and if you look at the punch that Francis landed on Tyson, it's the same kind of punch that Cain Velasquez got hit by Junior Dos Santos with, kind of right on the ear, behind the ear, just a little bit, totally legal. And this shot here, man, it didn't look like much, but man, it put him to sleep, and it was right on that ear. It didn't look like it even hit him that hard. but it just touched him and he was out. Elvis Brenner showing that he's got some power in his hands, but it's that shot. You hit someone right behind the ear, on the ear, it definitely has an impact on their brain.
Dave, are you able to pull that fight up at all and just show us that clip? It might be on YouTube. John, I don't think it was
one, right? The Kane one.
Yeah.
Which one?
I don't think that first punch landed, John. I think it was the second punch that hit him.
Who did you say he's fighting?
Which one? This fight
Not
you're talking about right here?
No, this fight we're talking about, Dave.
Oh, no, it was. The right hand missed. It was the left.
Yeah, it was the left. Okay, I want to make sure. Okay,
Yes.
okay. So, so we're on the same page then. Never mind, Dave. You don't need to pull it up.
absolutely.
Yeah, because I was like, I saw it looked like the right hand landed and the left hand missed in the replay. And then when it went live, because of the angle that it was shot at, then when you see this other couple replays, you're like, wait, the right hand missed. The left hand landed. Beautifully. Yeah. But it was so weird because it didn't look like it touched him at all. And
hardly at all.
He was out.
Yeah.
He was out. What I like is he didn't follow up with big shots after that because he realized it was over.
No need to. Yeah.
Great performance, great job. I mean, there's not much to talk about. It happened in the first round, but I thought he was patient. I thought he did a great job of, the feinting was very key. He gave the little feint to the jab, then waited for the reaction, and he came over with the big overhand right and then hit the left. It was very nicely done. Very nicely done. But the next fight, John, I thought Dos Santos fought a dog.
I love that dude.
I thought he's
a
dog
stud
fight. Very nice.
He is a tough son of a bitch. He's a good fighter. He's got to win against Saint Denis. He's the guy that I thought basically was going to ruin Saint Denis's career when the referee let it go way too long. But Dos Santos, he's got the ability to come back. He got rocked in the first 15 to 20 seconds of this fight. And, we had talked about this fight in particular. I said, this is going to be a great fight. Renat Fakhretdinov he's good with his wrestling. He's got good power. He's not the fastest guy, and he always does a little bit of awkward things. But because of his wrestling, he can do those things and get away with it at times. But Zolikas Dos Santos just fought a hell of a fight because he put up with a tough first round, came out in the second, looked way better, and in the third, he almost had him out of that fight.
I'm gonna go back to Fakhretdinov. Looks a little bit like how Magomedov is. If you push back on him, he's great when he's the hammer. He looked like he started to wilt in that second round a little bit, and then he started getting even worse in the third. The cardio's not there. He's really stiff when he throws his punches. The flexibility and stuff is not there. His ability to escape from the bottom position when he gets put down was not there. Now I know he got rocked and all those things. He was on when he was on top, when Dos Santos was on top. But the problem though, John, is that even the basic escapes from the mounts or from the bottom, they weren't there. And you've got to have those things in your mind when you're in trouble. From what I saw, there's some gaps in Fakhretdinov, and a lot of us were talking about how great he is and how wonderful he is and how he's this, he's that. I agree. He has all that. But this, as well as I know, once a group of fighters sees there's a blueprint, man. There's a blueprint on how to beat you.
You see it.
The coaches now, okay, and we're going to, obviously have a guest on. The coaches now are going to start paying attention to what happened in that fight. And this is where we can get them. We can exploit this a little bit. And now they're going to start
were you open? Yep. Where did that person take advantage of you? And then look at one of the things they're going to look at. They're going to look at the body.
Yeah.
They're going to look at kicks to the body, because he got hit with a lot of beautiful, roundhouse kicks, and then the teep up the middle, Hey, those things hurt. They hurt.
One of the guys, I sparred with a couple good guys that were really good. Kung Lee was really good with his toe kick. I mean, he would tape his toes, and it was like
he would purposely use the front.
Oh, just the toe. It was just the two big toes. Yeah. So his big toe and the toe next to it would just jab right into your gut. Yep. And every time when I would go to spar with him to get him ready for some of his fights, or for me getting ready for some of my fights, I'd go and spar with Kung. I'd go and spar with some of his students there. Thomas Dionne, I would spar with him. Jose Palacios. All three of those guys had that little toe kick, and I hated sparring with them. I was like, you know what? As soon as we get out there and you start kicking me like with that toe kick, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to fuck you up. It used to drive me nuts, man. I hated it. But it was effective. Really, really. And then I sparred with Lyoto Machida and his brother.
Chinzo.
Say it? Chinzo. And they were both really good at it. Really, really good. And they hit it really well behind their punches, little jerks. Those jerks. They're great guys. But I think there's a little opening now. There's a little bit of a blueprint. I'm not saying that everyone's going to be able to solve it, but this is the opening in the blueprint that people are going to be looking for. Coaches, fighters. Oh, there's a weakness there. The body, the cardio, a little bit of this here and there. Okay, let's go ahead and see what we can do. Survive the first round. Don't get hit with any big shots. Stretch it to the second. Start pushing up the tempo and the pace. But we're going to find out. Next fight.
But it was a great fight.
Yeah, it was.
Great fight. Victor Petrino against Modestas Bukauskas. Man, I tell you what, Victor Petrino is really looking good. He came in, man, very, very relaxed, ready to go. And, man, I'll tell you what, the one punch was a beaut because it definitely, you could see that Bukauskas was out on his way down, and when he hit the ground, it kind of brought him back, but Goddard had already come in stopping that fight because he saw him out, and it was just a beautiful victory for Petrino.
Yeah, it was very nice. Hit him on the nice transaction, a little step away, like fade away hook.
Yep,
very nice. One of the guys I used to train with was really good at it. Was Rockhold. He would actually switch stances as he did it, and he did throw with the right hand because he would fight. Yeah. Right-handed, but then as he would do is he would hook. He would hook with the left hand and step away, or the right hand and step away and hit. It was very nicely done. Very nicely done. Good stuff. I mean, like Petrino, I think the future's bright for him. He's got some good work and that.
Well, if you're looking at the light heavyweights, that's a guy that's on the rise, and you can see physically he is strong because he had that one takedown where he shot it and he kind of missed it,
but then
sucked him in. Yep. Oh, dude, just elevated him up. You go. Yep, you're strong. Yeah.
John, any other fights on here you want to talk about?
Yeah, I thought that Angela Hill looked fantastic. I love Angela Hill. She is a sweetheart of a person, and she is just a gutsy fighter who has fought basically her entire career in the UFC, let's be honest. And she was taking on Denise Gomes, who is, highly touted, got power in her hands, has put down some really good, talented ladies in the strawweight. And Angela Hill just looked beautiful. Everything about you, because it's when you watch somebody like Angela, because Angela came in as a Muay Thai fighter. She had no ground at all, and then, she started, trying to wrestle a little bit. And then her cage work, her ability to use the clinch and do dirty boxing up against the cage and the knees and everything. And now her ability to use the entire package and go from one element transitioning to the next. And you look at her and you go, that was a lot of hard work, Angela. I know it took you a long time to get there, but you're there because you are a hell of a fighter.
The knock on her is that she just, look, it's not even a knock on her. She just can't seem to win the big one. Not the big one, the close one.
She's had some very close.
That's what I'm saying. Like, she can't seem to win the close ones. Like, she doesn't get the nod in the close ones. It always seems to go to the other person.
Yep.
And I can, like, her Tisha Torres fights, a couple other fights that she had that were really close, and I was like, they were so close, but she couldn't get the nods. And I'm like, her career would be different had she got the nods in a couple of those fights. All right, hey, that's going to wrap up our UFC talk. And Dave's got some news for us. But before we go to there, go to onlyfans.com/weighing-in, onlyfans.com/weighing-in. Guys, subscribe to us over there. We've got a couple interviews, actually several of them, that are coming up. What we are going to do is, on some of our bigger interviews, we're going to make them only available on OnlyFans. You guys, if we were charging, I would listen to you guys moaning and groaning. But join us over at onlyfans.com/weighing-in. It's free to subscribe. Okay, it's free. We're not charging anything, but we're going to have some big interviews coming up here, and we're going to make them only available on onlyfans.com/weighing-in. So check us out over there. We want to thank you guys for continuing to support us. Go to weighing-in-merch.com also. Pick up some of our hoodies and our sweaters. It was a little cold in Tennessee in the evening time.
A little cold in Tennessee. Oh, yeah.
I get back to Texas, though.
I came back, and you can see the hoodies on, baby.
Man, I got back, though, to Texas today, and it's back up into the 80s. I was like, little breeze.
Good. I hope that's coming up this way.
Oh, man. It was freezing Halloween week, but I mean, this week I got back this morning. It was, by the time I landed at like 9 a.m., it was already 76 degrees. I was like,
dude,
damn.
It's been going down to like 28 degrees in the middle of the night. I'm like, no.
Sucks to be you.
Don't like that.
What else you got for us, Dave?
All right, let's talk about this bantamweight title, the fight that's been announced for the vacant title between Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva.
My question is this, Josh. Did we not just have Mayra Silva have some kind of USADA thing? Is it gone? Did they
I don't know.
come up with something that said, "Oh no, she wasn't,"
Pull that up, Dave. See if you can look
wasn't
that up.
guilty of it?
John, sometimes
I would swear that there was just a whole thing and to a failed USADA test.
Yeah, it was August 23rd. A couple months. I don't know. Pull it up.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
read
see what it
this.
says.
Marcella, not cleared. Your UFC drug test failure.
Interesting.
Because she beat Holly Holm,
Yeah.
and then
She
she
tested
popped.
positive for a substance consistent with the prescription medication I take for my ADHD. The UFC fight
Okay,
that
that's
she's
what it was.
cooperating with.
Okay.
Blah, 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 which overseas.
So maybe because of what the medication
Maybe.
is, they let it go.
Maybe.
Okay, that's fine.
Which is not normal for USADA. They'll normally still hold you to a 6-month suspension.
Oh yeah, just to prove that that they caught you.
It's all right. The state athletic commissions are no fucking different. They'll drag it out. They just don't want to admit they're wrong. Typical politicians. That's what they are.
Well, that'll be a good fight though. Really, Rocky Pennington is just. She's a gamer. She's gonna come trying to swing for the fences.
What concerns me with her is she's not a very active fighter. Her and Tisha have a baby now, so her mindset might be a positive thing, and it might not be. Are you just distracted with the baby, or is it more of a focus?
This time, she's had one shot at the title. That didn't go her way. That was against Amanda in Brazil. This is her chance to get that title.
Yeah.
I think she's going to be all in.
I don't think that she's not going to be all in. I mean, it's the overall having a baby in the house, trying to get ready for a fight, especially a title fight.
And in this situation, that's what Tisha's there.
Yeah.
She takes up the slack. It is tough.
It's just tough. Because, it's just tough. It's a tough situation.
Come on, Josh. Let's be honest. Fighting is a very, you have to be a person that at the time that fight's coming up, it's all about you.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it's hard. Like my son was born 2 weeks before the Tony Ferguson fight, and it's like it just changes. It changed a lot of what. No excuses. It changes. Like it.
Sure does.
Just there's the things. You're not getting the sleep that you should have been getting. You're, all the different type of stuff that goes along. You don't want to leave either. You want to be around. You want to spend those moments, those first 2 weeks.
Don't want to miss anything.
I mean, that's why they have, what is it called when wives are,
bonding.
What is it called when you leave work? Maternity leave.
Maternity
That's why they have
leave.
those moments. You can have that time to spend and not have your mind on work and things like that. So, I understand. I want to know where her focus is. I want to see. We're going to find out right off the bat. She's not an active fighter though. Even when before she had, she hasn't been a very active fighter. She's fighting. Can you pull up her record here? I would imagine she's only doing one, maybe 2 fights a year.
Yeah.
I'd
say you're right.
It's hard to go from just 1 or 2 fights a year. You might be all in, but as well as I know that the more you're getting 1 fight a year. She had 2 in 2021, September and December back to back. And then April 2023 or 2022, and then January 2023. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just 1 fight a year.
What?
We're going to find out. I like her a lot. I like her a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to find out. All right.
Both her and Tisha.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Great people. Great people.
Yeah.
All right. Following the comments
is great.
about Nate Diaz turning down this big money fight in PFL against Jake Paul for an MMA fight this time, Nate comes out and tweets, "I'm good. I'd rather fight real fighters and never backtrack to the minor leagues pussy FL. Fight yourself, dipshit."
Okay. I think that means that Nate does not want to fight Jake Paul in the PFL.
Yeah.
It's your choice. No problem.
I just don't think size-wise, Jake's bigger. Not that it makes a difference. I mean, really in the grappling area. But it will make a difference in terms of, the struggle to get him down. He's got a little bit of wrestling background. I mean, I don't know. I think Nate right now is at a stage in his career. He's going to fight one more fight outside of the UFC. I think he'll go back to the UFC and they're going to do the Conor fight. It makes sense. PFL came out and they said, hey, we put $10-15 million in front of him to fight the fight. Well, all that did really was just that gave Nate more leverage to go back to the UFC and say, hey, you want me to fight Conor? These guys are offering me 10-15 to fight a guy who's not a fighter, to fight a guy who's never done MMA before. But I think there's a lot more that comes with fighting Conor. Despite what people think and him being on the downslide or whatever it is, all those things, the UFC will market it way more than what the PFL will market, the Jake and the Nate Diaz fight. We've talked about this forever. The actual backing of which the UFC, their promotional backing, their marketing, they're just a fucking machine. They're animals, John.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
I mean, when a fight is announced, you're like, that fight fucking sucks. You're like, I don't want to watch that fight. By the time you get a week before the fight, you can't wait to watch that fucking fight. You're thinking this is going to be the next. You'll listen to everybody under the sun tell you it's the greatest fight that's coming up.
Every one of their commentators will, because this could possibly be the greatest fight of all time.
But when the fight was announced, you're like, nah, don't really care. Yeah. But by the time it gets close, you're thinking, man, I can't wait to see that fight. Can't wait. Yeah. So it's a market. They're marketing machine, man. They know what they're doing. They know how to promote. They know how to build up stars. Like, I think that's one of the biggest reasons they'll never have a fighters union, because there's always going to be some fighter that they can bring up and wiggle them through to make them a celebrity, make them a star, make them a cash cow. They can do it. They can make it happen. So
they just Dana came out with the Islam Makhachev, the statement he made in taking the Volkanovski fight, on the 11 days notice. Obviously Volkanovski stepping up and taking it, but he liked his statement so much he's putting it up in the PI. Guess what's going to be right next to Islam's statement? This tweet.
Yeah.
Nate Diaz.
I love it. I mean, look. What you get from Nate is people can say whatever they want about him. He's not stupid.
No.
He knows what he's doing, and he's got a really good manager. I know his manager.
He also knows what he's worth.
Yeah, exactly. And he's put his work in. He's not about to cut corners right towards the end. What am I doing? No. The money fight. The money fight for him is his next boxing match is going to do really well. And then his last fight with Conor is going to do really well. I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with Nate and Conor at UFC 300. I wouldn't be surprised.
Possibly.
We're going to find out.
We'll see. Well, I've been talking and you've been talking about having a guest on and that he was a trainer. And so we're going to go right to it, because we have the one and only trainer from Extreme Couture, Eric Nicksick, with us to discuss everything that's happening. Sean Strickland, Francis Ngannou, all the people that he is working with. He is a fantastic person, an incredible trainer. Here is Eric Nicksick. Well, we are lucky enough to have a person I consider to be one of the greatest MMA coaches there is in the game today. My man, Eric Nicksick out of Extreme Couture. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good, Big John, man. Thanks for having me on. It's good to talk to you guys.
Love having you on, man. Love what you're doing. Love it all. I'm not going to let Josh say anything, so you don't have to worry about this at all.
He didn't introduce you as his friend. He said one of the greatest coaches. I get that. He didn't say someone I consider my closest friend. Like, see, me, I consider you one of my closest friends in the sport. So, John, just step aside. Let the man come through. Let me run this shit. No, go right ahead, John. What you got going, buddy? What you got? What you got, John? What you got?
No, man, I am so. It's so funny because, Eric, how long have we known each other? This is crazy. But I remember when you first started coaching at Extreme Couture, and we had a little talk, and you were like, man, I just want to get, guys that are, just, excited to be in here. I said, dude, just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be fucking great at this. I'm a freaking genius.
Let's dial it down a little bit, please. Let's temper the emotions.
No, I remember that conversation, greatly, John. Like it was, like guys like yourself and Jay Haran and Mike Pyle and guys that really helped me understand how to carve my own path in this sport, and it was people like you that really helped me out, man, especially when I was young in my career and didn't really know, how to put the right foot forward.
Well, the one thing that has really impressed me is not every coach can sit there and just do what their fighter does. Sometimes coaches try to actually, get their fighters to kind of fight a certain style and do a certain thing. You have never done that. You've always flowed with whatever your guy's good at. That's that's their strength. That's what we're going to go with. And I love the way that you handle your fighters in the corner. And I love that you get mad at the judges all the time too. But no, I love the way you handle your fighters in the corner, because sometimes, you're stern and you're telling them, hey man, you got to get your shit together. And sometimes you're saying, hey, I love what you're doing here. You give him a little advice on he's open up for that check hook. Do this. What is it that excites you to go back again and again and again? Because it's tough. Being a coach is long hours. It's a lot of heartache. It's shitty travel and a lot of time away from home. So it's not what people think.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's just, I think the thrill of the victory, but also, you have this life of servitude to your team and to people that really trust in you and believe in you. And I think it's just the expectations that we have for ourselves that really that high standard at Extreme Couture that I've been a part of since day one. So I've seen the rise that we had, and I've seen the guys that were fighting for titles and the world champions being a fly on the wall. That was so important for me, and I think the growth and the maturation, because when Coach Falls passed away, I felt like that torch was handed to me. I didn't really have much of a choice, but I also wanted to, the Sean Tompkins of the world and the Robert Falls of the world, but also, my mentor, Randy Couture, I owed it to them to make sure that I approach this game with enthusiasm. I love to show up to work every day. There's days where I think that we all kind of fall in that rut time to time. I think we all do in this industry. But I'm always circled back towards gratitude, man. I pull up in that parking lot every day, and I think to myself, man, I got the best job in the world, and I hit the ground running, and I enjoy every time I'm in that room.
It's a little cliche to say that every fighter is that one fighter that you work with, they're like family. But do you feel like that every single time, that the expectations for you to show up and be there for them on a consistent basis? Because you'll find that some coaches that I've known for years that they only want to work with the best fighters. They only want to be with the top guys. You've got to build them up from the bottom. So when you first came on and you're working with these guys, do you get a little bit more gratitude or gratification out of the fact that, I had you when you had 0 fights in the UFC, and now we're here and look at where you're. It's is there more gratification for that type of fighter, or it doesn't matter because they're all like family to you?
I would say there's more gratification for the Dan Iges, the Puna Sorianos, Jeremy Kennedy, although he was in the UFC and then left. But just I think guys that you just spend so much time on the road together when there's no idea of what the end goal actually is, but hard work and determination. I remember going on the road with Dan and really getting paid nothing, but although it was that's what he was getting paid. And it wasn't the idea of what the payment was, it was the investment that we had into one another. And I think that's why when you see, the corner work that Dan and I have, it's a lot more personal. It's a lot more of a brotherhood, because my rise was parallel to his rise, and our successes are transparent to each other's. So as much as I love to be able to say hey, I've been with Francis for 5-6 fights now, but I didn't make Francis Ngannou who he is. I might have added to that, but I wasn't there from day one. So the guys that I was with from day one definitely have a different effect on me, Josh.
Absolutely. I've known Dan for a long time. I've never really actually trained with him. I've grappled him and stuff against the wall, but never hard sparred with him and stuff. But he's a phenomenal, phenomenal person. I've yet to meet someone who has said something negative about him. yet to me. So he's such a fantastic person. And I can see exactly how you guys hit it off, because every time I see you, you didn't know me from anything until I met you through John pretty much. I mean, just in passing, we saw each other. Yeah. But man, like the same thing with you. Every time I see you in passing, you're either smiling, you're laughing, you're having a great conversation, and I get no sense of ego from you. I don't want to blow your head up too much, okay? But it's like I get that, but you and Dan, I could see being just a perfect match in terms of working together, coach and fighter.
For sure, yeah. I think if somebody said something bad about Dan Ige, I'd immediately check on that person and be like, "Hold on, bro, something must be wrong with you."
This is true.
Some of the guys that you've been able to work with, and I'm going to put this out here so people understand. You have, guys, Sean Strickland just won the middleweight championship. You were there with him in Australia. So yes, he does have a passport, Josh. Yes, he can travel.
Did he just get it, by the way, while you're here? Did he just get his passport? He did. He did.
Yeah, for sure.
He just got it for that fucking fight.
For that fight. So you got guys like Sean Strickland. You were just in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia with Francis Ngannou when he was going to fight against Tyson Griffin. You've got
Tyson Fury.
Variance of Tyson Fury. I'm sorry, Tyson.
Different
Tyson
weight class,
Griffin.
buddy.
Tyson Griffin was one of the guys that when he was talking about Jay Harad and all them.
Yeah.
But those guys, Sean Strickland no one looked at Sean like he's this super athlete. He's this just, oh my God, look at all the God-given talent. Sean's a hard worker. Sean goes through a thing. Francis, God-given talent, but he works really hard. Dan Ige is one of those guys that Josh and I talk about him all the time because we love him as a fighter. He's one of those guys that it's all hard work. Everything that he puts into this sport is through hard work. What's the difference in working with those guys? You have Patchy Mix, who's in the gym there. Certain guys that are just exceptional in certain areas, and then other guys like Jeremy Kennedy, hard worker, just hard worker. What's the difference in how you handle them?
Each one has a different approach, to be honest with you, Big John. It's like find your path and avenue as a coach where you can help that person succeed or excel. And sometimes it might not be just in the MMA side of things. Sometimes it's just helping them get organized. Sometimes it's helping them understand, their potential. Sometimes they need help in the cage or understanding, like for Sean, for example. For us, it was like providing him an atmosphere where he felt like he had a family and a place that he belonged. He was this kind of nomad fighter that traveled from gym to gym and team to team. But I started to realize if I can give this guy responsibility, and if you give him responsibility, then he feels a part of something, right? Abraham Maslow's self-actualization, the hierarchy of needs. Yep. Give this guy something where he can feel like he's a part of a family. And that's where I started to really understand and know how to make, Sean respond to coaching. And it wasn't like, when I always say I coach Sean in increments. I don't try to take over. I don't try to give him like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're trying to change things. Even in the corner, I just ask for 20 seconds of his time. I don't want the whole minute. Just give me 20 seconds of your time because I have pertinent information I'm trying to give to you, and then I'll let you get back to work. So, it's been a slow grind. But with that being said, I feel like, it just makes me a better coach. It makes me identify things in a different perspective rather than just X's and O's when it comes to MMA.
You're asking for 20 seconds of his time. I'm asking for a text back from Sean. Yo, Sean, you going to text me back, dog? Yeah. It's been like 3 weeks now, bro. I texted you 3 weeks ago. Where are you at, Sean? No, we're trying to get him on the show, and so I'm going to call him out right now. I've been trying to get him on and say, hey, I need you to get on this show. But no, I understand what you're saying. But in terms of working with Sean, though, when you're coaching him inside the gym, is it different than how you coach him when it comes fight time, or do you guys just have the same type of talk and dialogue between rounds and sparring, the same in between rounds in the fight?
Actually, I think in the gym, he's more cognizant to the coaching and more receptive and listens better in the room. Like, he's very quick with it too. I'll say something and he'll be like, yes, coach. Yes, sir. No problem. You got it. And in the fight, I know that he's more dialed in and focused on the body language. Randy talked to us about his fight versus Mike Van Arsdale, which really, I think Sean kind of took that to heart. I mean, that was Sean's approach a lot of times, but Randy talked about when he saw Van Arsdale's body language, it made his body language go through the roof. So, we don't always try to coach just X's and O's. We try to coach every little detail and every little facet of the game to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of what we do, not only fighter wise, but coach wise. So I know when I talk to Sean in the cage during a fight, a lot of that is smoke and mirrors because we're trying to deliver a message to our opponent, not only the opponent, but also the judges and everybody else that's watching the fight, So in the room, I think he slowed down a little bit and listens to coaching a little bit better rather than in the cage. He's a wild man, but you see me in the Israel Adesanya fight, I was grabbed by his arm, just like, hey, give me 2 seconds, listen to this. He's trying to set Chael for a same side head kick. Pay attention to this, and I'll go sit down, and you can go right back to your pacing like a madman.
Yeah, I was in that corner with Mike. Well, I was cornering Mike Van Arsdale for that fight with Crazy Bob Cook, and you could see it. You could just see it in Randy's face. He was exhausted. Randy was, but Mike Van Arsdale was even more tired. We had to actually get him up off the stool. We had to force him to go back out there in the next round. We told him,
We've talked about that.
Get your ass up and get the fuck. He's like, no, I'm done. And we're like, no, you're fucking not. Get your ass back out there, take him down, and control its opposition. Yeah, it just, but we could see. We looked over at Randy. Randy was dog dead tired, and he saw how tired Van Arsdale was, and he just started bouncing up and down in his corner, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah,
we see the look
we
on Van
practiced
Arsdale's
that.
face.
We actually practiced that, Josh. Like when we hear the 10-second clacker, our guys are trained to get up on their feet and bounce because of that, because Randy's instilled that in us as far as, we try to coach every little detail, the corner work, your walkout, your preparation, every little thing has validity to it, and train that over and over and over again, and because of that approach Randy has instilled in us, that's why we do it in between the rounds of our fights.
We had Johnny Eblin on here right after the fight with Sean Strickland and Izzy, and I said I'm pretty good friends with Johnny, and Johnny's like, and I remember him telling me that he had sparred and came and worked with Strickland, and they helped each other out quite a bit. And he's like, look, I actually kind of knew that he was going to win that fight. Like, he's like, don't get me wrong. He's like, I have no disrespect for Izzy. It's just, I just knew that the style that Sean brings was going to make it very difficult for someone like Izzy, who's more of a technician and wants to be a sniper, but somebody that puts the pressure on him. And he's like, and just that style, which he blocks and then comes at you and talks to you and does all those things. How is that? How did you notice that type of stuff in the gym when you first started training him? And how much has that evolved? Because then we had Bobby Green on, and he's like, that dude he took all my tricks. I talked to people in the cage, and I fought Bobby, and I know he talks to people in the cage. But he's like, yo, Sean got that shit from me. And so I just laugh about it because how much have you seen him evolve in not just a technician and being a better fighter, but tightening up his game, but making himself just an overall true mixed martial artist?
Yeah, I've seen him evolve quite a bit, and I think the biggest thing for us in the past few camps was cage awareness and understanding how to own the geography without putting ourselves on the barrier or backing ourselves up to the cage, or really utilizing our cutoffs really well, which is something again that I think we learned quite a bit from Randy. That was one of the things that Randy always talked to us about really early on in my career was, that the cage control should be its own art in itself, So those are things I think for Sean that we try to really implement in his game, because he gets kind of lost in his own striking. He'll kind of get into a follow and a chase where, I want him to always kind of understand that we're hunting and we're cutting off. So that was a lot of the emphasis in his growth the last couple fights. But when you hold pads for him and you start working on some of the things when it comes to the striking, it's so crazy, Josh, because he does things that you wouldn't coach. You'd be like, bro, don't reach for that punch, or don't do this, or don't do that. But it works for him, So I think he's a rule breaker. He colors outside the lines, and it makes you also evolve as a coach. So I always look at it like this. It's like, okay, well, I wouldn't say don't do that. You just have to understand the consequences behind it. If you do this, this might be the consequence behind it. And it's helped all of us in a lot of ways. Like, you tighten up Sean's game a little bit more, but it also opens your mind a little bit more as a coach as well.
Sean, because Javier Mendez is very much similar. You have to listen to your fighter. It's not just about what you want to do. Like John had brought that up when you first asked his first question. It's about evolving your fighter, but working behind their strengths. sometimes these fighters are so fast, they leave themselves out of position. Sometimes they have the shittiest takedowns, but they still manage to get them. Whatever it is, you want to work to their benefits and to what they're really good at. But you also have to listen to them. Javier used to tell me, I was like, man, I don't like that combination. We've been on the mitts and we practice, and it just looked like shit, and I felt like shit doing it. It was horrible. And he would do the same thing other fighters as well. But then he's like, you got to use it in sparring. We went over it a couple of times, and if it didn't work, okay, let's throw it out. Yeah. But like you got to know what your fighter's good at, and that's I think where you're really capitalized on with Sean, specifically Sean, is that he's so unorthodox that it's really hard for any fighter to train for him, and it's even hard, it seems like, for you. Because it's like, how do I make these adjustments? I know you're leaving yourself out of position. There is consequences to you being in this position. So how do you tighten him up knowing that this is not really what we're supposed to be doing, but it's working for you? How do you tighten him up in those areas?
I honestly, God, I think it helps us so much that he spars as often as he does, and we get the reps and the quality reps. The guys in the room, it's weird because we've all gone through these phases, as you well know, Josh. It's like guys in the early careers where, man, like the fights that were going on during the Extreme Couture days, there was no sparrings or fights, and then it slowed down to a little bit like, okay, we're only going to spar 1 day a week and maybe it's 3 rounds. Whereas I think Sean's kind of brought back that idea of sparring, but for him, it's more about his timing and understanding his rhythm more than it is about like, oh, I'm trying to mess people up in the sparring rounds. The other side of that coin too, Josh, is he doesn't really get hit that much. His defense is so good. And I think that's a lot of testament to the fact that he does spar so often. His timing and his rhythm is so good. His footwork is so good. So for me, I honestly think it's the reps that he's getting in the room. And he spends a lot of time going out and boxing world-class boxers. Not a lot of guys have been doing that other than guys that are trying to cross over. I think that's also important because, as you know, when you go in there with guys that are world-class in boxing, it really, really tightens up your defense very much. So I think all of the above, I think the reps are really helping us.
My question is this, because we've talked about it, so I want you to explain this to everyone. Being a guy who's on the inside, being a guy you work with guys that are in the UFC, they're in Bellator, they're in the PFL, they're all over the place, and you're all over the place. And you get to see these guys training together, guys that are world champions in one organization, world champions in another organization. How difficult is it for you when you hear people saying, oh, this is so much better, when you know exactly what goes on in the training room? Does it bother you at all? Does it make you want to sit there and go, here, let me tell you something stupid? Or is it just like, neener, I'll never tell, but you're wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like, what happens in the training room stays in the training room, but it's also, it's very enlightening when you see guys and they're gym warriors. We've seen those guys that come in and they're big bullies and they're beating the crap out of everybody, but the lights come on and so there's something different. And then you see the other way around as well. So I take that information and I hold it close to the vest. I see a lot of that stuff day in and day out. For example, the Hamzat Sean Strickland situation where people are like,
exactly, that's where I was going.
Like, hey man, the rounds, there's a lot of things that I saw that on my end that I could say that would ultimately I think would piss off Hamzat. And again, I'm not going to say those things because it happened in our room and we keep it in our room. But it also is great information for us as coaches to know and how to approach a game plan. And on the flip side of that too, John, like I loved having that dude in our room, man. He made us all better. He brought a lot of good insights, not only to our ground game, but to the way we blend level change into your striking, your penetration step, the way we're finishing our takedowns. So I welcome having those guys in the room. I hope that they know when they come train. We're not videotaping, we're not sharing those rounds, but what happens in that room stays in our room.
With Sean, in terms of with Sean and like what's coming up with Hamzat, what are your thoughts on? I'm trying to word this so you can answer it in terms of like where you think this fight will take place, because given like now we know he has a passport, But given that like they just were in Saudi Arabia or in Abu Dhabi, so like where do you think this fight will take place? I heard Hamzat can't come to the States right now with visa issues, and that's been the issue for a while. So Sean doesn't want to go and fight outside, really, from what I understand.
Yeah, hopefully in the States, and that was I actually talked to Sean tonight about some of this stuff as well, and he's like, man, like I'm an American dude, like why would you have me defend my title anywhere but America? It should be Texas, it should be Arizona, Florida, Las Vegas, something along those lines. But it's interesting because I feel like a lot of these cards don't have a really big headliner or true headliner that are coming up. So, I can imagine Sean, maybe even Canada, that might be a neutral option, if you will. But with that being said, he's back in the training room. We're doing everything we're supposed to do. So when that phone rings, that we'll be ready to go wherever they tell us.
John,
when you have some of the young fighters, you have like Kai Kamaka, who's super talented. You're talking about a guy, man, fast and he's got good wrestling. His hands are beautiful. But he's that guy when you look at him when he fights in the cage under the lights, there's moments where he just basically loses his mind. And then there's fights where he just looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. How is it that you control someone that is that good and has sometimes the ability to not follow the game plan? I know it's driving you crazy while it's happening, but what's it like for you?
He said to me after the Corrales fight, he thought that I was going to cuss him out going into round 3, and I thought about it. I really did. I thought about really getting his ass. And all I said to him going into round 3, Big John, I said, look, man, I know how good you are, and you're not fighting to your potential. You're fighting to this guy's level. I said, I don't want to yell at you. I don't want to scream at you. I don't want to say anything other than this should not even be a fucking close fight. You should be blowing this guy out of the water. Right. Even if you're just off your footwork, speed, jab, low kick alone, there's no way this guy touches you. And it wasn't me yelling at him or begging or pleading. It's just my honest to God assessment for a kid who I call my Ferrari. When we get in the cage and we do things, we think on a level that, most people don't even understand what goes through our heads when we comprehend combinations. And we can do things in the room, but you almost feel like sometimes it might be a waste because it's like he's not performing them in the cage. And then you go see him when he feels free and he's in motion. And their last 2 fights prior to that, you saw him lay it all out there and you saw what he's capable of doing. So I just don't want him to fight to the level of the guy in front of him. I want him to fight to his full potential. And I tell him, I go, that's on me as a coach. I got to get that out of you to where you go in there and it doesn't matter who it is, that you're fighting to your full potential every time out.
Yeah, I felt that way when John and I would talk about him all the time, and him and I had actually talked back and forth a couple times about his last couple fights in the UFC. And I said, that's not you. Like, we know who you are. We've seen you fight. We know what you're good at. You're good everywhere, but you fight to, like you said, basically to his opponent's level. If he doesn't believe that they can do anything to him, he'll just pick and choose his shots. And sometimes, as we've seen, the judges don't appreciate that. And so he's left himself behind in areas where he shouldn't have been, and it's a tough situation as a coach to have to deal with, because what do you say to him to get his ass going? That's the thing.
Yeah, no, but the good thing is I think we're on a 3-fight win streak now. And, he's starting to believe in what his potential looks like and the things that are working. And I see him in the room go against Jeremy Kennedy, Mads Burnell, Dan Ige, Julian Erosa, Patchy Mix. I see him day in and day out. Now it's just making sure that every time he steps into the Bellator cage, that he understands what the hell he's capable of doing. And we're going to start seeing him climb those rankings pretty fast. And, that's on me, man. I got to make sure that we're firing on all cylinders when we get in the cage and we're well prepared. But just getting that little bit of like that meanness, I would say, out of him to be able to go out and go execute what we're trying to accomplish.
Looking at, everybody that you have and all these things, is there anybody out there that you look at as a fighter and go, man, I would love to be able to train that guy? Is there one guy out there that you've looked at and say, that would be a guy that would be my idea of someone I could do something with?
Well, I've trained this guy quite a bit. And I just love working with him, but I don't corner him, which I'm actually okay with, but I just love his demeanor and I love his approach to the game. And that's Johnny Eblin. I've had just such a fun time. Every time he makes a trip out to Vegas, we really hit it off. And I think his fight IQ and the way that he approaches the game.
He's a great guy.
Man, he's a great guy. And like, he had talked about possibly moving to Vegas, but it didn't feel right in the moment that he was at in his career. And I couldn't be more happy because I love King Mo. I love Brown. I love all those guys over there, and he's made the right decision for him. But I definitely feel like, just as far as like a guy that I connect with on a high level of expectations to, what we do, I think, in the cage and our growth, he's the guy, man. I really love his approach to the game. So I definitely say Johnny Eblen.
And to talk about Johnny and talk about Sean, you've seen them spar, you've seen them train. And John and I have this debate all the time, especially me in the comment sections of our YouTube channel, about how there's really good fighters all around the world that are not always in the UFC. And you're there in a gym, in one of the top gyms in the world, and you see how many of those guys are in other organizations. And Mike Brown's very much similar to what you're saying with King Mo over there at American Top Team, and Henry Hooft with his guys over at Killcliff. They know. But can you explain to people that they're not all the best fighters are in one location, as much as maybe it would be nice if they all were? But that's what makes this whole thing fun, correct? That's why podcasts are successful, because we can just talk shit and just live in this world of what ifs.
I mean, you guys said it, man. Like, I feel like Patchy Mix might be the best bantamweight in the world right now. I see him in the room on a day-to-day basis. I see Sadibou C and what Sadibou's been able to accomplish since he's moved over to Extreme Couture and his development. And not
Boy, you guys have done a good job with his wrestling.
Man, he's done an amazing job. But he was a guy that I love that guy so much. Where he actually came and started training with us with Hamzat. Him and Hamzat came over, and he moved. He said he was with us for a couple weeks. He said, "Hey, are you okay if I pack up and move? I want to come back this next month." And he goes, "I got my ass kicked so bad here for the last 3 weeks that I feel like this is where I need to be to get better." And credit to him that he made that choice to
I love that attitude.
Exactly. And a rising tide raises all ships. That was his mentality. He's like, man, I got to be here with you guys. So not only have we made Sadibou better, but he's really made us all better in our room. I tell you, Sean Strickland won that fight versus Israel Adesanya because of the rounds he put in with Sadibou C. Nice. Sadibou made us all better, and vice versa. So, like you said, Josh, there's guys in our room that maybe a lot of people don't know who they are, but there's a lot of guys in that room that really help raise the level of who we are as a team.
Yeah, because I've been saying for the long, John and I both have been saying for the longest time, Patchy Mix is someone not to mess with, man. And we said the same thing about Rafian Stott. So when that fight came about to be in the fight, we were thinking to ourselves, man, this is that fight where whoever can implement their game plan, but then boom, out of nowhere, you guys decide to work on a knee up the middle. Very nice.
not me. I was on the other side of that one.
No. I want to say, hold on. Let's talk about that real quick, because Rafian had come out to Extreme Couture. You guys had a good relationship. Then Patchy comes there. Rafian kind of goes back to Houston, but still wants you as his coach. What was it like being there? That was in Hawaii. Yeah. You were with Rafian Stotts. Yeah. Patchy Mix is on the other side of the cage, and he's training at your gym. Yeah. That's a weird situation, and there's a lot of things going on that people don't realize.
Yeah, absolute nightmare. I mean, I hated every minute of it. I mean, I did, because it's like here's Patchy.
I don't blame you.
He's flying the Extreme Couture colors. He's all about the team, and so am I. And it was a situation that would it sucked, man. It sucked being like having to turn the other way and watch rounds on the other side of the gym to make sure Patchy felt comfortable. Nate on one side of the corner. It just sucked all around, but it was something that I had committed to long before the decision, and at the end of the day, like Josh and I talked about this when it all came to fruition. It was like, my job and my goal is to make sure that I give Patchy Mix 110% on my mats. Yeah. My job and my goal is to give Rafian Starts 110% as his coach. And I hope that both of them ultimately end up in the finals, because it is life-changing money. And if I were to win, great. If I were to lose, at least I lose to a guy that's going to benefit from that's out of our gym.
Yeah.
But man, it honestly, it was one of the worst feelings I ever had in my life, being on, that whole fight week, man. It sucked. It just sucked. And then losing in the way we lost, it sucked to see Rafian, destroyed like that, but all in all, man, it's part of the business, and certainly something I don't look forward to. If it ever happened again, I'd probably make a different decision on that one.
But speaking of Patchy Mix, he's got a huge fight coming up against Sergio Pettis. Give us a breakdown. I mean, how do you see that fight playing out, and where do you see him being able to exploit Sergio?
You know, I talked to Patchy a little bit about this, and I think Patchy needs to funnel Sergio to the corner panels, where Sergio's so good in his footwork and his movement after both stances. You have to make him feel like he's stuck in a phone booth and make him make a decision or make him make a mistake to where we all know when Patchy jumps on you and he's hula hooping you and he's on your back, that round is pretty much a wrap. Whether he's finishing you from there or you're pretty much stuck in that body triangle position and it's tough to get him off your back. But for me, I think a lot of that is to negate the cage and make Sergio backed up to a barrier and take away his 45-degree angle movements and make him move laterally where you can cut him off a little bit better. And I think Patchy has a real good game plan. He utilizes his length really well. Yeah. And then just get him into a position where he makes a mistake and he throws something and gets off footing to where, you know, once Patchy's on you, man, it's a freaking nightmare.
I want to say this. I would love to be a fly on the wall. I don't want you to answer, but I'd love to be a fly on the wall to watch him and Aljamain Sterling grapple and him and Murad grapple. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I mean, I can't imagine someone not wanting to see what's goes on behind closed doors. The three of them together in the same room would be freaking awesome.
For sure. And we got a young kid that's up and coming. His name's Kobe Fair. He's from Ohio. He was a 2-time national champion Ohio wrestler. And he's kind of under that Jake Shields, Patchy Mix, you know, wing lineage of guys. And you know, we actually coined a new moniker because of him. We said, make ground and pound great again. Because he's just that style that you guys would love, man, and enjoy. And honestly, I'll throw one more name in that mix of guys is Jeremy Kennedy. When you see those 5 guys getting after it, it's world-class grappling.
Well, I can't use Jeremy because he fucking walks around about 190. He's so damn big. I've never seen it. I swear to you.
Bro,
John and I had this conversation. We have this conversation all the time. I see him in passing. I'm like, there's no way you make the weight. There's just no way. And Rogan, when I first fought in the UFC, he's like, Josh Thompson's one of the biggest 55 pounders I've ever seen. Take a look at me now. I'm like the smallest guy that would ever walk in that cage. These guys are enormous. Jeremy's way bigger than me, and he fights at 45, a whole 10 pounds lower than I ever fought at. You know, it's like, it's crazy. He's so big, so big.
He is. He's a monster, and the guy is just a walking diet all day long. Like he can't steer. He off
has
that
to
diet.
be.
He's a calorie counting dude, bro, inside and outside of camp. So no, he's a big kid. Sure.
He's a calorie count guy with the nickname of Junior Bacon Cheeseburger.
And doesn't eat red meat.
It's a reminder to stay away from that Junior Bacon Cheeseburger.
That's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
He's such a great guy. And then how did you guys get linked up? Because I hadn't really heard of him a whole lot until he'd come over to Bellator. And I was like, yeah, he's tough. He's big for the weight. It'll be interesting to see how well he does, this and that. But then in passing and meeting with him and talking with him, it's I get that Dan Ige feel. Like he's a very just humble, very nice, very confident in what he can do inside the cage, but just a phenomenal person.
Oh, hands down. And it's like just a big old nerd. Like me, like I'm talking like he'll be able to go back and show you notes from our first pad session 5 or 6 years ago. You know, he's just a guy that just really loves the sport of MMA and engulfs every little aspect and finds ways to be better each time out, just like Ige and the guys that you mentioned. But I met Jeremy. He actually came and trained with us for a couple of weeks, then took that short notice fight against Volkanovski in the UFC. Lost the fight and decided to pack up and move to Vegas. Unfortunately, he was cut or not renewed. He was 4-1, I think, or 3-1 in the UFC, and they didn't renew his deal. So the first fight I cornered him was for we went to Morocco together. We fought for Brave, and we went and got a first-round finish. He fought one more time in Brave. Then we moved over to PFL. So I think we about 13 or 14 fights together now. We've been together quite a long time, and man, he's an absolute stud. Not only in the cage but outside the cage, just a great human being all around. Just had his first baby, you know. So for me as a coach, it's like being a proud papa. You know, like you see these guys just growing into these just phenomenal young men. You know, but yeah, Jeremy Kennedy, man, he's an absolute stud.
Do you have a boy or a girl?
He had a little girl.
Oh, God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Oh God, he knows.
Oh man,
100%.
Oh jeez. I guess look, John. Let's go ahead and just crack right into Francis. I mean, there's a lot of things going around, and this and that. I mean, we obviously know he didn't fumble the bag. He's doing well. But the thing is there, I saw the Chael son, and he put out an article based on an article. He put out one of his videos, basically saying like he kind of did fumble the bag because that's for one fight equal to what basically the UFC was going to pay him to fight John Jones. No guarantees he would was going to beat John, and all that stuff. I think the argument is, if we're having this conversation about what is next for him, I mean, in his PFL contract, I heard he has 18 months to fight boxing, and then he can go ahead and come back into the PFL. Can you confirm that that's true or not? He has I think it's like 12 to 18 months to fight boxing, whether it's to get one fight or multiple fights. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that either. I don't know the verbiage as far as the contract goes, but Chael made an interesting point in the regards of he would be right if we weren't injured and had the time to actually be able to fight those fights that he's speaking of. The other side of that coin was we were offered $8 million to fight John Jones. That is correct. But where the hangup was what happens if we potentially lost to John Jones, and where does that set him back?
Yeah.
Contract wise, and again, like people will talk about like, oh, well, put your money where your mouth is. It's about setting yourself up correctly and making sure that you're covering your butt on the back end.
Those are people on the couch, by the way, that are saying
100%. People that just don't understand the business side of things. So ultimately, yes, I understand what Chael was saying in regards of had we been able to fight 4 fights in the last year. But because of his knee injury, we did have a minor setback as far as just a cleanup job of the knee that was in April. And then we were able to get back into camp. So had he been able to fight, it probably would have been about the same timeline of fighting John Jones, maybe in September, October for us. Would have made a lot of sense. But he's in a situation now, Josh, where I mean, ultimately, I feel like he just gets to call his shots. He's on the A side of whatever he decides to do. The PFL sounds like they're more than willing. From what I talked to Ray this weekend, Ray Sefo, they're all about him being able to box. I think it really also raises the stock of PFL with their star guy going out and making waves and doing the things that he's doing. So right now, I think he's back home. He's going to probably hang out for a couple months and then try to figure out what's next for him in the landscape of what boxing looks like. But I'll tell you this, Tyson Fury's not fighting in December that he thought he was going to be doing.
Yeah, it did change to February, didn't it?
Yeah, sorry, bud.
Is it John, real quick, was it always Tyson Fury though during that time? Because with the injury, but was there talking stuff with Anthony Joshua, with Wilder? Was it always Tyson Fury, but then the knee injury kind of held him back and they didn't want to announce anything until he was healthy and ready to get into camp?
We would have fought on the knee, but with the way that the timeline kind of shook out, he was able to get a small cleanup job done on the knee that really helped him out a ton and really, I mean, honestly, made his movement better, made his cardio a lot better. So I'm glad we were able to get that done. But we had the big three in our mind. It was Wilder, Joshua, and Fury, with Fury being 1A. If we had the option to fight one of those three, we were going to be happy and we were going to shoot for the stars. There was a couple names that came across that didn't make sense for us and were more, to me, actually could have been a tougher fight for that matter. But for him to be able to go out and get the Tyson Fury fight for his first pro boxing match, man, it just really set us up for good things to come.
Well, I can tell you, I've been a fan of boxing, been involved in boxing. I refereed boxing. And I honestly, when this fight was happening, I said, look, I love Francis. I think he's just a hell of a person. He's a great MMA fighter. He's going to have a hard time touching Tyson Fury. I just don't see him, having that good of a night against him. And I then came out and said, I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Completely wrong. But I gotta ask you one question, because in the third round when he knocked Tyson Fury down, and you saw him, and I started screaming, not so much for the knockdown, because I saw Francis step forward and he started doing the little dance, and I'm going, get to the goddamn goddamn corner because I wanted the count to go.
100%.
I was like, don't do that. Get to the corner, right? I was yelling, but you got to look and say, I figure that's like, that's one of those moments. And I've heard so many people, how many people do not understand that boxing is not 10 seconds? It is a 10 count. And when you don't go to the neutral corner, look, I used to referee boxing all the time. And I would tell in the back, let me make this very clear to you. I call him down. I'm going to look and I'm going to point you. You can go to any of the three corners. The one farthest away from me is where I want you to be. If you do not go to that corner, I'm telling you, I'm going to stop the count. I'm going to take my time in looking at you and telling you get back to the corner. And then I'm going to slowly go back and then start doing the count. So it is beneficial for you just go to the neutral corner. And as soon as he started, I was like, no, I was going crazy.
you and me both. Because I was like, we're like, at first he was like styling on him and dancing. We're like, go, get in the corner, bro. Like, but
I saw Mike Griffin, the referee, walking him over there. I'm like, shit, God damn it. But it didn't matter. It had to be just an incredible night for you, knowing the guy the way you do and working with him and stuff. To see him, because no one expected him to do as well. Many people feel that he won the fight. If he didn't, I said, look, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't care. Look, he won. You want to know who the winner of the night was? That's real simple.
Yeah.
Francis Ngannou, the guy with the nice bag that says fumbled. Okay. It's just,
yeah. Well,
you couldn't ask for a better situation in that whole thing. And to be honest, and to be around Francis is one of the nicest guys.
Unbelievable.
He is just a classy individual.
Yeah. Unbelievable human being. And a guy like, you just truly pull for. And look, at the end of the day, we just want to see people succeed, right? Like we talk about this all the time. Success is infinite. There's enough to go around for everybody. And, if you're cheering against somebody to be successful, you should probably check yourself in the mirror, And, we had a great, I'd say 4 or 5 months of just build up to a camp. And I think it really helped us in regards of we were able to have a boxing camp in segments. And it was like, we're going to work on your cardio, your rehab, and this for the first month. We're going to grow into this the second month. We're going to grow into this. And then we're actually going to get into our sparring and our game planning and then just kind of evolve everything out as it went on. And the beautiful thing too for us, John, is like unrelatable to the MMA side of things where you're doing things so much as a team. This was so much predicated on just one individual to his needs and his specific outlook and the way we needed to approach the game. It reminded me a lot of like when during the COVID era, when there was just a small group of us that were training in the gym, everybody kind of had their specific style and game plan. And it really was a traditional boxing style of camp. So, we were able to just really add new tools, but all the same time in our approach to this fight, we wanted to stay unpredictable to the terms of what a conventional boxer would be doing. We wanted to stay on the terms of what we were doing well in MMA, but maybe apply some different flares that he might not see or be accustomed to that a big heavyweight conventional boxing style might be. That's why you saw us switching stances quite a bit. That's why you see different series out of Southpaw. We were trying to set up our step over series that a lot of guys, that we do in MMA. We try to get into dirty boxing a lot more in this fight because I know that's where Tyson was good and was really good in his entire career, but I just didn't think it was the level we do well in MMA in the dirty boxing and clinching. You've seen the size of legs of Francis. You see the size of legs of Tyson Fury, right? It's just a matter of, hey,
Tyson found out very quickly. He thought he was going to just manhandle him in the clinch, and it was ugly for him.
It was ugly for him, And, Dewey really put together a beautiful camp, in my opinion. The way the camp was laid out and structured, it really fit the style of the fight that we ended up having. And then the way the sparring partners were lined up. We started sparring guys that were, I wouldn't say world beaters, but they were big, sufficient heavyweight guys that we were able to kind of grow into the boxing element. And then as the camp grew on, the style of guy got harder and tougher. And then by the time of the end of camp, we're sparring this Ukrainian guy who's like 12-0, you know, and he's in the Usyk camp. He was with Klitschko, and that guy made us better. You know, that guy really made us better for our last month of camp, having Alex around. So it was nice to see the evolution, if you will, of the way the camp progressed. And in the last couple weeks, man, we just really hit that peak to the point where, you know, we all had faith in Francis, but we're all looking around each other going like, hey, we could pull this fucking thing off, man. Like this is right where we need to be. So, you know, it was a beautiful job by Coach Dewey, John Mumba, you know, the whole team, man. I couldn't be happier with the way everything progressed.
There is a couple things and a couple questions I have for you. Who would you like next? Do you want to see them run the Tyson Fury thing back? Or would you prefer maybe like an Anthony Joshua? Maybe spread the wealth a little bit. Go out there and dabble there, because certain guys I feel like are tailor-made. I think Anthony Joshua was tailor-made for Ngannou. I don't think he's got a great chin. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's got a great chin. He tends to slow down by rounds, 4, 5, and 6. You know, and I think in terms of strength and physicality, I think obviously Francis is the bigger, the more physical fighter. And when he gets in that mix, we saw that with Tyson, like John said, in the first round. Wilder, I think, is probably the last guy. He's long. He's got good power. It's like there's a lot of risk reward there though too. You know, he does leave himself open. He is hittable. You know, he is kind of a slow starter. He kind of comes on as the fight goes on. And Tyson just having the bigger name, being the champion. Like if you're choosing between those three, those are your three anyways that were on the market to begin with, or that you guys were aiming for. If you had to choose between those threes, maybe for the second one, what would you do? Who would you want him to do, and why?
Honestly, I would love to get the Tyson Fury fight back again. All the things that you said are spot on too, Josh. Like that at the beginning of the whole boxing journey, Anthony Joshua was the guy that I really felt was the one that we could pick off. That was the name. Yeah. I was like, we can get this guy. We can get this guy. I think we could beat this guy. Wilder was, I think, kind of looking in a mirror in a lot of ways when it comes to unpredictability, when it comes to the striking side of things. So that could have been more of a coin flip. And then Tyson Fury was oh man, this is the holy grail of boxing. Now that I saw that what we're capable of doing, and I think there's a lot to be said about Francis's, I wouldn't say that he was naive to who's in front of him, but ignorance is kind of bliss. It's like the guy when we've all seen it in our gym too, right, Josh, where a young kid will come in from wrestling in high school and he's going with Joe Benavidez. And he doesn't even know who Joe Benavidez is. And he's in there just wrestling his ass off. And you get done, you're like, hey, man, that was a great round. Do you know who that was? He's like, no, I had no clue. it was Joe Benavidez. It's almost like that with Francis. He's just like, hey, man, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to go in there and give my best A game. And I'm going to get after this guy. And sure as shit, man, he hung in there with the best heavyweight in the world right now. So I feel like you can really run that fight back. I know he's asking for Usyk to step aside for a rematch in February. All in all, I think he holds all the cards, man. I think he's a $30, $40 million fight, whatever he wants to do next. If it's Joshua or Wilder rematch, man, or Fury rematch, man, all of them make sense to me. But if you're asking my opinion, I would love to get that Tyson Fury run back again.
What do you say to the naysayers? Like, look, and I'm going to be honest, you're going to hear this, and we've heard it already a ton of times, is that he just used Ngannou to get ready for his Usyk fight. And I've said that. I was like, he signed the Usyk fight, and he basically was using Francis to get himself ready for the Usyk fight. I'm going to use this camp to kind of get my steps going, and then on top of that, because if you look at him in that fight with Francis, and I'm not taking anything away from Francis, I'm saying, though, we've seen Tyson Fury have more output. We've seen him have more footwork. And a lot of the naysayers are going to say, well, that wasn't somebody that we'd seen fight like a Wilder. My argument and John's argument, both of our arguments, was this, is that Francis made him uncomfortable in there. And that's why you saw that fighter. But what's your take on, how do you present your argument to naysayers as the coach?
Here's the thing too. It's just like arguing with my 7-year-old right now. Right? Like,
look, that's honestly, tough. It's so tough.
Hold it, just so you know, Josh and I argue with a lot of 7-year-olds.
John sometimes when he's arguing with me, it makes him feel like a 7-year-old.
But I've never been in a Instagram conversation or a Twitter conversation where somebody actually stopped and said, "Hey man, you know what? That you're right. That makes a lot of sense." And I find like it's just spinning your wheels and wasting your time on, now people are saying, "Oh, well, look at the pay-per-view buys." Right? It's like, bro, like what we can just argue and fight over every little nuance of this game, and none of it's ever going to make sense. I'd rather spend my time on getting better. I'd rather spend my time on working on our craft and just shutting people up each fight and each turnout. Because at the end of the day, they're going to find something to bitch about. They're going to find something to say that you're doing wrong or why you suck or whatever it may be. But we're going to continue to keep growing and becoming better. And instead of worrying about the naysayers, bro, that's on them. My buddy always had a great saying. He said, hate is the preferred emotion of the underachiever. You're going to catch hate, but probably because they're not achieving what they need to achieve.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that one now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good
You
one.
talked about Francis in his fight with Tyson, how he was switching stances, going to southpaw. I gotta pat you and Dewey Cooper and you guys on the back, because I felt like his straight left was really effective in the fight. Every time he switched, and it seemed like it was a lot straighter than his straight right, and it was finding the mark every single time, which was making Tyson a little bit more hesitant to step in, because like, oh, he's got power in both hands, and it's coming fast and quick right down the middle. I mean, what was the reasoning behind switching your stance so often?
Well, I talked to two people prior to this camp, and one of them, a guy that I love and respect and I've known for a long time, is Chris Algieri. I called Chris and I said, "Hey man, let me pick your brain on some things. You fought in kickboxing, you're well versed in MMA, and obviously you're a great boxer in your own right. Here's some of my approach that I want to try to attack this, and what do you think?" And he said, "Bro, I think you're onto something. I think that it's something that might be able to disrupt some timing and some rhythm. But all the while, it gave us a bunch of different setups that I think that most conventional boxers weren't going to be able to see." A lot of the style and the approach of starting off southpaw, Josh, was because I knew that he'd be afraid of our right hand. And I felt like Tyson was their number one game plan, which I saw right away, was to nullify our power side hand with their jab. He was going to jab our right hand and make us parry. Round one, what did he do? Jabbed our right hand, make us parry. So let's change the delivery mechanism. Let's move the power hand now forward, and let's make him occupy that hand here. Now, when we throw our straight left hand, what happens was Tyson kept using his lead hand to parry his hand down. When we threw the southpaw cross, there was now an opening for us to hit our step over to bring a different delivery mechanism to hide our now front side hand over to our rear side overhand, just a basic step over.
Yeah.
So we were trying to find ways to occupy his defense and do things that maybe he wasn't accustomed to. The other thing was, with out of the open stance, we were also throwing our left hand right to Tyson's parry hand side and try to get him to parry that hand down. By doing so out of southpaw again, we would throw the left hand straight, get him to parry, and then we would do a gallop reload the left hand again to come back to the left overhand. So it was almost two left hand punches, just a gallop reload or a gallop step to come back with the left hand. So there was a lot of things I think that we were seeing that we actually, didn't really accomplish to the ability that I think we could have. But all the while, it was doing its job. And you're absolutely right. His left cross is a better strike than it is his right cross, in my opinion. I think it's because this is jab hand that's actually just now reversed. But man, he could throw a nice left hand. And I thought the moment we saw Tyson Fury try to make the adjustment to us being southpaw, he didn't feel comfortable there. So I felt like we were onto something right away.
I've found that most guys that throw a good straight left when they switch and they're not normally left-handed or southpaw is because they're more relaxed. Is that it's something that they don't tense up. Like when we're normal, when I was fighting normal, I would load up my right hand or I'd sit down and you could see it coming. You realize when you're southpaw, you're like thinking to yourself, just fucking throw it straight. Okay, how do I throw it straight? How do I throw it straight? You're thinking to yourself, don't fuck this up. Because if you leave yourself overextended, there's a lot of things that go through your mind because you're not used to fighting in that stance, especially in a real fight. It's different to do it on the mitts or in sparring with teammates. But to do it in there against someone like Tyson Fury, you got to have some big balls. And that's something that's overlooked. And you got to pat Francis and all you guys for switching that game plan and making it work, because it was effective. It was really effective.
The one thing too that like the only reason why it did work, or the reason why it works so well, is because we base it on you're not allowed to switch your stance unless your defense is sound there. And a lot of people are seeing or falling in love with the stance switches, but how is your defense sufficient from there? If you can't block a punch, or you can't see what's coming from that southpaw position, you're probably better off staying in an orthodox stance, or your natural stance for that matter, and not switching those stances. So your defense needs to be fluent out of both stances before you can even make that assessment to go over there.
This is true. This is true. I mean, like go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like for myself, when we were first working switching stances, it was more of a switch, throw your combination, and get back to your normal stance, because you knew you would leave yourself out because of for defense. You weren't fully prepared to block the head kick on that side. You dipped that way. It was just everything was backwards, and so you had to make sure you got yourself back to the normal stance to be more of a defensive fighter. Exactly
right. Switch with purpose. Don't and like Follis used to get on that us about that. Don't just switch to switch with purpose and intent. But if all need be, get right back to your natural stance immediately. Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I saw Francis doing in that fight that I was really impressed with, because I know working with Mike Tyson, it looked really good, but you look and you go, how much are you going to be able to actually pick up and utilize in the fight? And Tyson used to frame with his left hand and throw a big uppercut with his right hand or overhand, and he used to use a jab with a straight right to the body all the time. And Francis used that perfectly multiple times throughout that fight. I just want to say, what's it like? Give some credit up to Dewey Cooper, is a phenomenal coach. He's done great things with, Bubba Jenkins went there, great wrestler. All of a sudden, Bubba Jenkins had hands. He was really looking good. Francis having him as a coach. What's it like for you to be able to work with all of these other coaches, and how much has that improved your game, listening and seeing some of the stuff that they talk about?
Oh, I love it, man. And Dewey's my brother. We've been together for a long time. Dewey and I worked our first camp together was Ray Sefo when he fought World Series of Fighting. And that was the first time like Dewey and I actually jumped in the corner together, and we've cornered tons of fighters together. Obviously Francis being our main guy, and we feed off each other very, very well. There's no egos when it comes to who's wearing the microphone or who's the head guy or who's this or who's that. As a matter of fact, when this fight started, this fight camp started, our guy gave me the video content guy. I kind of forgot we had a meeting, and Francis was looking at hiring a full-time boxing coach. And in that meeting, I went to bat for Dewey, and I was like, no, man, the guy that runs your camp is sitting right here, and that's Dewey Cooper. We all have full faith on what he's capable of doing. And moreover, I just feel like, Francis's trust factor in the guys that he has around him is very important, more than it is about the style of coach. And man, I just felt like Dewey was the right guy for the job. And not only did he exceed our expectations, man, he blew everything out of the water. The guy was traveling to corner Bubba Jenkins, traveling back the next day to hold pads for Francis, traveled back to here to do this. He really, really busted his ass and was the heart and soul of this entire camp. And I couldn't be more proud of him. I'm just really glad he's getting all the flowers that he deserves, because, man, he was the heart and soul of what we put together this camp.
You guys said you were brothers, you and Dewey, and I'm like, I can see the resemblance. You guys look very similar.
Very similar.
But he talks to my mom more than I do, so we're definitely brothers.
I'm gonna kind of switch gears a little bit, and there's a little bit of talk that PFL is gonna buy Bellator, and and there's the crossover and all this stuff, and obviously Ryan Bader's the heavyweight champ over there. I do know that Brian has brought up a couple times, he's definitely interested in the fight if it does happen and it does come to fruition. How do you like that fight, him and Francis?
I love that fight. I just feel like, in no disrespect to Ryan, I just feel like we've seen what Ryan's done against power punchers, the Anthony Johnsons of the world, guys that go in there and just, try to bang and take his head off. I think it changes the element of Bader's approach. I think he's gotten so much better since his UFC career. But I think it's just very different when you get a guy of the size and stature of Francis Ngannou in front of you. versus a guy who's, fought at 205, who's now moved up to heavyweight, who can kind of, dabble in between the two divisions. And when you get a real true power puncher and a guy in Francis, who also, I wouldn't say he's the level of wrestler by any means of Ryan Bader, but a guy who's sufficient now in being able to stuff takedowns and put you in a position of panic wrestle and keep the fight on its feet, you're in for a pretty short night, I'd say.
And in a fantasy world, okay, because I know, look, we've already talked about cross promotions and all this stuff, but people continuously, I was listening to Don Davis on Aerials, and they're going to do this whole thing with John Jones. But in a fantasy world, because we know it's never going to happen, what exactly and how did you see that fight playing out? I mean, like in terms of the expectations from Francis, being able to stop his wrestling, utilizing his power. I've always said, John and I both have always said, John Jones is great against guys that were a little bit smaller than him. Not in terms of weight and stuff, but in terms of they didn't have the reach. The reach, the length, all of those things. He could put his hand on your forehead, and it was like a little kid. You couldn't reach him, like the little brother that couldn't hit him. But when he fought guys that were tall, long, and lanky, like Gustafsson and what's his name? Dominic Reyes. He had a harder time with those guys because the physical body size wasn't to his advantage anymore. Correct.
I would say I'm still optimistic that maybe one day we'll get that fight, but here was my thoughts on the approach. Was we couldn't make it a technical fight where if we stood in front of John and tried to go tit for tat, technique for technique, I felt like we would put ourselves at a loss. I certainly wouldn't want to approach it the same way that he did against Jairzinho by any means, but I think the term would have been calculated chaos. Put John on his back foot, make him, if he were to decide to wrestle, it needed to be off his back foot and more of a panic wrestle to where the shot would have been more apparent and you would have been able to defend any of those takedowns. I didn't feel like John, although it being a very short fight, I didn't feel that he looked very comfortable on his feet against Ciryl Gane. I did feel like there was a little bit of uncertainty when that fight was starting to take place, and I feel like that would have been our opportunity to make sure that we got right on him and were to try to get him on his back foot and try to attack him right away. And I felt like who was the guy that's now Santos? I thought Thiago Santos did a good job when he fought John on putting him on his back foot and making him fight with his back against the cage. That would have been a lot of the approach that I think we needed to have. And, if we were the first fight that John would have had in the heavyweight division, I feel like to weigh heavy on him. Let's make this a heavyweight fight. Let's get into the clinch games, which could have been a calculated risk because I do think that's where John's very good with the elbows on the inside clinch game. But I also felt like it was going to be important for him to carry some of our weight early in the fight as well.
My last thing
we saw from the Tyson Fury fight that Francis handles elbows very well.
yes, he does.
He does. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you out of here on this. Last question from me. Give us some guys in the gym that are not signed by anyone, but we should keep an eye out for.
Definitely the Kobe Fair kid I mentioned, and then I would say Puni Pagoa. Puni fights for LFA. He's one of the Hawaiian kids. He's a guy that Brad Tavares brought over years and years ago. Very, very good out of both stances, very fluid. And here's what I love about him and Kobe. One is a proficient striker, one is a great grappler, and those two have now become very good training partners in helping one another's growth and their maturation. And Puni's a guy that really just jumps off the page when it comes to striking. But all the while, his last fight, man, I got actually emotional watching his rounds because he had a moment there where he could have kept it on his feet and did this and did that, but it was a situational awareness thing where he actually shot a takedown and finished the round on top because it was what was given to him rather than forcing a knockout or forcing this, forcing that. I was so proud of him because he made the right decision for what was right in front of him. And I literally had tears in my eyes because he was a guy that just shied away from any wrestling, any grappling whatsoever. And he turned something that he felt was a deficiency into a strength. And that's what our main goal is. I think when you look at Extreme Couture is like, hey, we don't want to be typecasted into one thing and you're doing one thing to win a fight. We want you to win fights for what presents itself. We can call audibles. If you take a guy down and he can't get up, let's get back to the takedown. Why put ourselves in any peculiar situations? Let's give ourselves the right opportunity to win. And that all starts in the training room, man. So to me, Kobe and Pooney, those guys really jump off the page for me. And when it comes to guys that are just that up and coming talent that you're going to see, making waves hopefully soon in a big organization.
What weight are they?
35s and 25s.
The huge guys.
Yeah.
The fun
Got it.
guys.
All right.
The fun guys.
I'm gonna ask you one silly question as far as you get to work out with a lot of these guys. You hold pads for a lot of these guys, the Sean Stricklands, the Chris Curtises, the Francis Ngannous, the Sorianos. Who's the guy that absolutely is going to owe you payment for your surgery on your shoulders and elbows when you're done with your career here?
Puna Hele Soriano, for sure. Puna and
No
Francis.
kidding.
Yeah, I always tell Puna, I think he's pound for pound the hardest hitter in the gym. He unbelievable the power this guy generates. And honestly, John, it's ungodly. I don't know where it comes from. He doesn't cut really any weight to make 85. We've actually thought about moving him down to 170, but he hits pads like it reminds me of like Jack Tatum, the assassin from the Raiders, just a guy who can just send it through. And he's not aiming at you; he's aiming at the guy behind you. That's the way he punches. Now it's all about making sure we get the delivery mechanism correct, and he's not, blowing his load in the first round. He just touches you, man. He'll put you to sleep. So definitely Puna. I'm actually due for that shoulder surgery too. I'm pretty much bone on bone now. So,
there was a guy out there that most people don't remember and stuff, but everyone thought the Tank Abbots were the big hitter. The guy that hit the hardest that I ever saw, 185 pounder. And it was a guy named Drew McFadden.
Yeah.
He could swat.
Yeah.
Man, if he landed, but he did the same thing. His gas tank wasn't real big, and he hated to wrestle, man.
Absolute crack. Yeah, Drew. He was a Pat Miletich guy, correct?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he couldn't wrestle for not at all.
Hey, Eric, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and it's been a pleasure. And we don't want to drag you out too long. We've got a good hour out of you, and I want to thank you so much. It's been 6 months. I've been trying to get you on, John. Just
Come on.
I'm a bad person, man.
No, man. You know how much I love both of you guys, man, and the honor's all mine. I watch you guys' show regularly, especially when. And just honest to God truth, if I'm trying to break down a fight or if I have a question on something, honest to God, I'll watch the show and see what your guys' analysis is on something. And, you guys are usually spot on with it. And when you're wrong, you're wrong. You admit it too. That's why I always appreciate about both of you guys. So, love you both, man. And I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Man, thanks for coming.
Eric, want to tell you, man, love you, brother. I'm so happy for your success. Just keep on trucking and doing it and making everybody wish that they had your job.
Yes, sir.
Right. That's it. Take care, my man. We will talk later. Well, I want to thank Eric for being on with us. That was a lot of fun. I've known him for a long time. I will tell you, Josh, he is one of the best guys that you could ever be around. And he is so good at being a trainer. And you can just see it with the way his guys are performing and what's been happening. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
When I know a lot of the people that listen to the show, you guys don't, obviously a lot of you guys don't see what happens behind closed doors. And you can tell who's a good coach and who's not. Those good coaches, they'll normally have like one or two of their fighters always with them. And even if those fighters are not cornering, they still come along because they want to be around that coach. And he's someone like, he's always got a Jeremy Kennedy. He's always got a Kai Kamaka. He's always got someone that's with him, helping him and his fighter either warm up, get ready, cut weight with them, do all the things that the coaches don't want to do during fight week. And that's what that fighter is. That fighter is someone who looks up to him, admires him, appreciates him, and you see it everywhere we travel, John. We see Eric in almost every fight. And he's always got a one or two guys that are helping out with whatever fighter he's got on the card. And you can see that his fighters respect him, they admire him, they look up to him, they do all the things that you're looking for, in a coach. And he's a fantastic person. Like I said in the interview, I didn't know him. I just knew of him. I didn't know him until you and I were sitting around talking one day, and he was there, and you introduced me to him, and he's absolutely just a genuine guy. When you talk to him in passing, he's a great guy. So good luck and congratulations to him on not fumbling the bag. And the future's bright, man. I think he's doing a great job over at Extreme Tours, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So, well, hey, guys, that's going to wrap up our show, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the interview, and hopefully you guys enjoyed our fight breakdown, and we're going to go ahead and move on. And got Tuesday. We've got a lot of things going on Tuesday coming up for our next show. You guys will be excited, and several interviews that'll be coming out. And remember, like I said, follow us on onlyfans.com/weighing-in, onlyfans.com/weighing-in. And John, take us away, bud.
For everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Mr. Eric Nicksick. He is a fantastic person. I hope you liked our breakdown on what happened, and even the reference back to Jake Shields and Dan Henderson. Come on, you got to admit, you can't think of another fight that happened like that. But everyone out there, thanks for watching, and we will see you.